So, we are solving equations with square roots. There's really only a couple of steps to these too. So, step one, I'm actually going to put on this paper here. So, the first thing you need to do when you are solving equations with square roots, step one, get the square root by itself. This is a step that so many kids do not do, and it makes your life awful if you don't. And you're probably going to get it wrong. So, if you only have, and that's, get the square root by itself, I'm going to say, or if there's two square roots, get one on each side. So if you just quickly glance at number 1, for example, see how the square root is not by itself? It has this -2 hanging out over here. So I want to move that to the other side as my first step. Whereas if you look at number 2, this one has 2 square roots, but I already have 1 on each side, so that's fine. I'm going to leave it as it is. Okay? So once you do step 1, step 2, how do you undo a square root? Yeah, I'm going to square it. And since this is an equation, I can square both sides. So as long as I square the left and the right hand sides completely, I can do that. When we were simplifying a single radical, you can't just square a random fraction. But if I have an equation, I can square both sides, and it's fine. So once you do step 1, you are just going to square both sides. And then, once you've done that, you're just going to have some equation to solve. So, solve equation as usual. That's it. I'm going to throw in number 4. Check for extraneous solutions because you can have them here also. Okay, so there's really your 4 steps. The only new part is really step 1 and 2. Step 3, whatever equation comes out, it's going to be some equation that you should already know how to solve. It might just be a linear equation where you just solve for x. It might be a quadratic where you have 4 ways to solve. Completing the square, quadratic formula, factoring, or square rooting. Who knows? They can come out to be anything. Bless you. And then you're just going to solve it from there. Okay? So let's try with example number 1. So step 1 says get the square root by itself. So what must I do first? I'm going to add that 2 to the other side. Add 2, add 2. So now I have 6 equals the square root of 2n. Step 1 is now done. The square root is all by itself. Step 2 now says square both sides. So I'm going to square the 6, and I'm also going to square this whole thing. When I square the 6, I just get 36. That's easy. What do I get on the right-hand side? Just 2n, exactly. A square root and a squared cancel each other out. So I just have 2n, and now this is a very easy equation to solve. I would just divide both sides by 2, and I have my answer. So, looks like I'm getting 18 for n. Now, we do want to check for an extraneous solution. So if I just pop 18 back in, 2 times 18 is 36. The square root of 36 is 6. Is 6 plus -2 4? It is. So I don't have to worry there. Let's try 2. 2 is one of those ones where there's more than one square root. So step 1 says if I have 2 of them, I want to get 1 on each side. Luckily, that's already done for me. So step 2 says square both sides. So if I square both sides, what do I get on the left-hand side? Yeah, it just cancels itself out, and it's just 2x plus 21. So then this side is just 3x plus 31. And now you just solve that equation like you normally would. So what would you normally do? You're right. I would minus 2x. I would minus 31. Let's check for an extraneous solution. So if I plug this back in, right? Be careful, especially with the negatives. 2 times negative 10 is negative 20, plus 21 is 1. The square root of 1 is 1. So I get 1 on the left-hand side. If I plug it in over here, negative 30 plus 31 is 1, square root of 1 is 1. Works out just fine. Now, things start getting a little bit more interesting with one like number 3. Step 1, get the square root by itself. Do I have to do anything? No, it's already by itself. Step 2, square both sides. So, on the right, I have n squared. On the left, I just have 15 plus 2n. How do you solve this one? You all know, I hope. It's a quadratic, right? If you have an n squared, it's a quadratic. So, I need to... If you have a quadratic, what do you want to do with it? Yeah, first I want to set the whole thing equal to 0. So, and I like to, you want to keep the n squared positive. So let's minus 2n. And let's minus 15. Thank you. And now I'll go ahead and look for those factors. Factors of negative 15 that add to be negative 2 are... other way around, I think. A minus 5 and a plus 3. Thanks, Matt. Oh, good. So then my answers are positive 5, negative 3. Okay. You got 2 answers. You have to check them both. I know this seems like a silly thing that I'm making you do, but you have to. So let's try it. Pop in a 5. 2 times 5 is 10. 10 and 15 is 25. Square root of 25 is 5. Looks good to me. Let's throw in a negative 3. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Plus 15 is 9. The square root of 9 is 3. Not negative 3. It's only plus and minus 3 if I take the square root. If it's written this way, if we want plus and minus, it would have to say plus and minus on the outside. Okay. So, I ran into a problem.
5, 3?
Yeah, the 3 doesn't work. If I plug it back in,
Then just 5.
I have to throw out that answer. So, negative 3 is an extraneous solution. So, this is important because if you're taking the MCAS, right, they're going to have 4 choices. One choice is going to be 5 and negative 3. One choice is going to be just 5. One choice is probably going to be just negative 3. And one choice is probably going to be baloney. Right? But you need to know which of those ones to pick. And so many people are just going to pick A, right? Because they got those 2 answers, and they're never going to go back and check. But it's really important. Negative 3 does not work. So, the right answer is only 5. Okay, you with me? All right, you try 4. No, you can end up with 2 correct answers, but you always have all your numbers. You really do have to check them because you never know when one's going to come out that doesn't work. Plus, by you checking it, you know if you have the right answer or not. Oops, sorry. I thought I shut it off. Okay, we got an answer? Well, as people are finishing up, let's just look at step 1. Is the square root by itself? It is by itself on the left-hand side of the equation, so at least that step's done. I don't have to move anything around. So step 2 now, I'm going to square both sides. So now I've got 2 minus p equals p squared. Another quadratic. So I'm gonna want to set the whole thing equal to 0. Try and keep the p squared positive. So I'll add p to both sides and I'll minus 2 from both sides. So now I'm here. P squared plus p minus 2. Because it's a quadratic, I'm gonna try and factor it. Don't forget, not everything can be factored. So if it can't be factored, what are you gonna do? If you can't factor this thing, quadratic formula, or complete the square if you feel like it. Anyway, I can factor this one into what and what? You sure?
Plus 1 and minus 1.
What?
Wait a second. Minus 1 plus 2.
Plus 2 and a minus 1. Correct. So that means my answers are actually -2, +1. I already know that one of these doesn't work. Yeah, because think about it. The square root of a number, when it's written like this, okay, that is the positive square root of whatever that number is, right? There's no plus minus in front of this. So if I take this, right, if whatever I plug in here is going to come out to be some positive number, so how could it equal -2? It can't. So I already know that -2 doesn't work. Because when it's written like this, the square root of any number can't come out negative. You follow me? All right. Let's see if 1 works. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. 2 minus 1 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. Okay, good. So 1 does work. I don't want you to get it in your head, though, that you always throw away the negative answer, because that's not true. Sometimes the negative answer works just fine. Hopefully we'll come across one. I don't know. 7 looks challenging. Let's jump to that one. There's a fraction in it. Are we going to handle anything any differently? No. You still follow the same 4 steps. Get the square root by itself. Oh, but there's 2 of them this time. I want 1 on each side. Okay, great. I already have 1 on each side. So step 2 says square both sides. Okay. Oops. Now I ask you, how do you solve this? Lily?
Multiply by 3.
Great idea. Let's multiply both sides by 3. Just don't forget, when you do that, on the right-hand side, you have to multiply everybody by 3. So 24 times 3 is what, 72?
Yep.
Now what are you going to do? Look at you guys go. So now I'm at 4v equals 72. So I just get 18. Don't forget to check it real quick. 18 over 3 is 6, so on the left I get square root of 6. 24 minus 18 is 6. I get the square root of 6 over here too. So it looks good. Okay. Let's see if there's, do I have tougher ones on the back? Oh, yes, we do. Yes, 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 indeed. Okay, let's jump to one like number 21. Number 21. Okay, so the steps are the same. It's just, do you have enough? Yeah, I want to get the square root by itself, so I have to minus that 3 to the other side. But so now, all the other examples we've done, that was just a number, but now it's not. So on the left, the best I can get is x minus 3, and on the right, I have square root of x plus 39. Okay, so step 1 is now done. The square root is by itself. Great. Step 2, square both sides. This is where I hope you have enough algebra foundation to do this right. So, when I square the left-hand side, squaring the right-hand side is easy. That's just x plus 39. What do you get when you square the left-hand side?
You get x squared minus 9. X squared minus 6. You have to FOIL it.
You have to FOIL it. Because that's x minus 3 times x minus 3. You can't just push that square through. It doesn't work like that with a binomial. You have to FOIL it. So I like to just write it again, so I like to see them both.
X squared minus 6x plus
X squared, yeah, minus 6x, and then plus 9. That's what you get when you FOIL those two. But you have to be careful. If you are squaring a binomial, you have to FOIL it. That's probably the most common mistake, is not to FOIL something like, or to FOIL it wrong. Now, I'm here, I'm like, okay, I still have a quadratic. I know how to go from here, I hope. What'd you do next?
you have to get salt set equal to 0.
Yes, how?
I was minus 9.
Mm,
Yeah. Why don't you x squared?
yeah, I'd minus these two to this side, because you want to keep your x squared positive, right? You always want to keep that x squared positive. So it's minus x, and we'll minus 39. So now, I don't have a lot of room, but I'll write it over here. That gets me, whoops, whoops, whoops. Yep, x squared minus 7x minus 30, right? Equals 0. Great, now I can try factoring, hope that it works.
10, 3.
Yes. Who's positive, who's negative? Negative 10 and a positive 3. So that means my answers are correct.
So before you solve the x squared thing, you have to take all the numbers from the other side.
Yeah. You have to set it equal to 0 first. So now we're done with step 3. Don't forget step 4. You gotta check these answers, guys. Let's plug in 10. 10 and 39 is 49. Square root of 7. 7 plus 3 is 10. So 10's good. Now, don't immediately throw away negative 3. You gotta try it. Negative 3 plus 39 is 36. Square root of 36 is 6. 6 plus 3 is 9, not negative 3 though. So, yes, the negative 3 gets thrown out again. I plug them back in. So, when you plug in negative 3 and 39 is 36. Square root of 36 is 6. 6 plus 3 is 9, but I just plugged in negative 3. So negative 3 does not equal 9, so it doesn't work. So even though I did all my math right and negative 3 came out as an answer, it doesn't work when you plug it back in. Okay, you guys try 26. Yeah.
When you get to the point where you have your two factors of C that add up to Z,
Yeah.
how do you know which one's negative and which one's positive?
So if I just go back to this one, they need to multiply to be negative 30, but add to be negative 7. So negative 10 plus a positive 3 gets me negative 7. If I had the other way, if it was a positive 10 and negative 3, it would add to be a positive 7. You get what I'm saying? So you need to make sure it's the ones that add to be whatever B is, but will multiply to be what C is.
So wouldn't both of them have to be negative on 26 then?
I don't know. I will answer that question in a moment. Can someone tell me what the first thing is that I would have to do? Yes, you got to add that n to the other side. So, on the left, I have n plus 2. On the right, I have square root of 7n plus 2. I'm going to square both sides, because now step 1 is done, right? So square both sides. On the right, you should have 7n plus 2. On the left, you have to FOIL that out. So if it helps you to write the other n plus 2 there, and FOIL it, go ahead. Whatever you have to do. It should get you to n squared plus 4n plus 4. So hopefully everybody had this line at some point. Now I want the whole thing to equal 0. So I'm going to minus 7n from both sides. I'm also going to minus 2. And then writing over here, since I'm running out of room, I would have n squared minus 3n plus 2 equals 0. Yes, so in this case they are both negatives. So that means my answers are positive 2 and positive 1. Let's check them both. Okay, let's start with 2. Negative 2 plus 7 times 2 is 14 plus 2 is 16. Square root of that is 4. Is negative 2 plus 4 really 2? Yeah, so 2, positive 2 is a good answer. Let's see if positive 1 is also a good answer. So if I plug in positive 1, I actually get negative 1 plus 7 times 1 is 7 plus 2 is 9. That'd be 3. Square root of 9 is 3. Negative 1 plus 3, is that really 2? Yes. So both answers work. I don't throw anybody away. Positive 2 and positive 1. So, what do we think? No, they're not too bad. You ready to try some on your own? Yeah. Okay. Hopefully, everybody